Negotiation is a big and complicated topic, but actually there's quite a few simple ways that you can explain how to negotiate and how to be effective. One of my favourite ways of doing that is using a diagram. So in this session, I'm going to use my favourite diagram to explain how to conduct and how to understand a negotiation. So here we are. We have what is a very modified conflict diagram. It's nice and simple really, despite the additional bits and pieces I put in there. On the y-axis, you've got their wants, their desires. On the x-axis, you've got your wants, your desires. So nice and simple. You've got a diagonal line in the middle, which we'll come on to in a bit. So talk about the compromising and the collaboration element. But let's start at the bottom left of this diagram. And this is that point on that graph where they're not getting what they want and you're not getting what you want, or you're not meeting your requirements and they're not meeting their requirements. This is quite straightforward really. If you spend however long trying to negotiate, and this is where you find yourself at this part of the graph, then it's really simple. You need to walk away, and neither side is getting what they want. And this doesn't have to be an acrimonious process, because the whole point of a negotiation is to establish where you are on this graph. Whether your interests do align with the other side. And the answer is, if they don't, then someone on both sides just needs to shake hands and say, yes, it was nice working with you. Sorry it didn't work out on this occasion. Words to that effect. So that's nice and straightforward. And it's quite surprising how many people struggle to do this. I suppose there's always the pressure to achieve a result. And so no one wants to walk away. But you have to understand that the point of a successful negotiation is establishing your alignment, establishing where you are on this graph, really. And if you've established that you are in the bottom left part of this graph, the negotiation has succeeded. It has succeeded in telling you what you need to do next. So let's move to a different part. Let's go north from that point, the box labeled their advantage. And in this scenario, you've been conducting a negotiation with the other side, and you find that you're not really getting much of what you want, but they're getting an awful lot of what they want. So in short, the balance of power has very much been in their favour. Now you've got certain choices here. One choice can be, would you accept? That is what it's going to be. You may be stuck somewhere, and they may have you by the shorts and curlies. You've got no choice. What little you are getting is truly essential to you for whatever reason. And the other side know it, and they've been playing hardball. So one option is you may not like it, but you accept that that is the position you're in. And I'll talk about that a little bit more in a bit. Another choice you might have is walk away. Again, you might decide that this is just not enough for you and it's not important enough to accept all their terms. And if they're not going to budge, then you may need to make the decision that you've reached your break point, that negotiation just isn't going anywhere for you, and you walk away. And that's a better place to be if you can be in that position than to have to accept it. But there is another choice. And the other choice is to try and shift the other side. You shift them more to that compromise point on the graph. And there's a variety of techniques and methods that you can use to do that. I won't go into that in this diagram. What I will point out is those are your three choices if you find yourself in that part of the graph. So let's flip this the other way. Let's go into the box titled Your Advantage, where the roles are reversed. You're the one with the upper hand, and the other side really aren't getting much of what they want. And they've got the same choices as I've just outlined. But here's a crucial thing that you, as the negotiator, need to understand if you're pushing the other side into that box. If your goal is to negotiate something complicated, or something where you want to build a long-term relationship, particularly one based on trust, this actually isn't a place you want to push your partner, the other side. Because at the end of the day, this is not a happy place. This is not somewhere they want to be any more than you want it to be in the other box, and when it's their advantage. So what that means is that anyone who's been pushed into those boxes it's not going to be not likely to be a stable partner. They want to go somewhere else. At the first available opportunity they can get, they will leave. Maybe they'll take a contractual breach, maybe they won't, maybe they'll wait to the end of the contract. Whatever it is, they will try and leave. They will try and renegotiate, or they will try and walk away and find someone else. So if you build a relationship, or let's say you build them as a critical supplier in your supply chain, for example, you don't want your supplier to be in the your advantage box, because they will leave you high and dry, and that's a long-term risk to your program or to your supply chain. So these are things worth bearing in mind when negotiating in a place where we end up in those boxes. Let's come back a little bit to the diagonal line. Let's specifically go to the compromise point. And the compromise point is where you've conducted a series of negotiations and both sides have put forward their red lines. Both sides have compromised on the tradable aspects of the negotiation, things that they are willing to relinquish, willing to reduce in order to secure the deal, as it were. And that's where most negotiations end up, usually in that sort of compromise point. Not that many people get everything they want, but sometimes they do. So let's go to the top right hand side of this line, which I've labeled true collaboration. Now, true collaboration happens pretty much when both sides are near 100% aligned. That is, you want exactly the same thing, possibly at exactly the same time, or at least in sequential time. And requirements-wise, cost-wise, all the stars are aligned. Everything working together. So really, the whole point of a negotiation, there's 2 points actually. One is, as a negotiator, you should always be able to identify where you are in this diagram. If you can't, then you're doing something wrong. You need to know really where you are. You need to have information to understand where you are. You also perhaps may want to have an understanding of where you want to be. For big and complicated things, you may want to be in the true collaboration category. However, if you're conducting a more adversarial style negotiation, you want to minimize your costs, and you don't particularly care about the other side or want them as a long-term sustainable partner, then you may want to shift things more towards your advantage. That is a tactic, that is a viable strategy. The whole point is it's a conscious strategy, not an accidental strategy. So really, in a very simple diagrammatic way, you're trying to figure out where you are on this graph when you're negotiating in terms of where you want to be. And when you have identified, for example, a true collaboration, then what the negotiation is all about, it isn't about trying to achieve compromise or trying to achieve advantage. It's about to pin down all the details in order to enable that true collaboration to happen. So I said earlier, for example, you may want the same thing at the same time or sequentially. Well, that's important because at the same time may actually cause problems. The production line may not be able to meet both sides' requirements at the same time. So you may have an element of compromise there, that maybe you will share that production, or maybe one person will hold off their order to allow the other side to get the order to get it done first, because, for example, they have a more urgent need. And you can negotiate certain benefits from doing that. That is what collaboration is about. It's understanding those pinch points and working with the other side to overcome those issues in order to achieve that collaborative result. So that's the negotiation diagram. I hope that's prove helpful to you.